They stuck her on ammunition depot guard because she looked like she'd never held anything more dangerous than a clipboard. No combat patches, no unit insignia, just a quiet woman in ACUs beside a chain-link fence. 3 hours later, 3 black SUVs slid through Kentucky mist and stopped short of the gate. The man who stepped out moved like controlled lightning, eyes taking in everything. He glanced at her rifle, the posture, the stillness, and said, "Thank God you're the one protecting this place." Staff Sergeant Tricia Farrell didn't look like much at Fort Campbell, hairpin to regs, faded fatigues, a habit of blending into background noise and getting work done. Major Bradley Hoffman, polished boots and louder voice than resume, had yanked her off inventory to cover the ammo perimeter for a VIP inspection. "Indefinite," he'd said. "Try to stay awake." Behind razor wire and concrete, the depot was quiet. 2 hours into the shift, the radio warned of a convoy. The SUVs weren't army drab, they were tinted and bristling with antennas. Tricia stepped out, rifle low, posture steady. The operator who emerged wore no name tape but carried the calm of people who've survived bad nights. "Commander Ryan Blake, Team 7. Ordnance retrieval," he said, offering papers. She verified every line, every code. "All clear, Commander." He studied her for a beat. "Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Thank God you're here." Hoffman arrived mid-operation, red with offense that no one had begged his permission. He started a public dressing down until Blake appeared at his shoulder with a tablet. "Your staff sergeant performed by the book," the commander said evenly. "If there's a communications failure, it isn't on security." Bluster drained, Hoffman demanded a 1400 report and stomped off. Blake lingered. "How long you been at Campbell?" 6 months. "And before that?" "Various assignments, sir." He seemed to weigh the answer, then let it go. "Your major doesn't know, does he?" he murmured. When she held his eyes, he slid a plain white card across the counter and stepped away as boots scuffed on gravel. Hoffman again, this time with 2 MPs in tow. The questioning started before the convoy cleared the gate. "Time of arrival?" 0847. "Advance notice?" "Authorization above base." "What kind of ordnance?" "Above my clearance." "Then how did you verify removal?" "Digital system, sir." A crackle on the net cut him off. "Base to Major Hoffman. Report to the colonel immediately." Color drained. He hissed for a complete report and left. 1 MP Davis glanced back with quiet respect. Word spread. The quiet sergeant held steady while the major flailed. Summoned, Tricia entered Colonel Patricia Wade's office. "Relax, Staff Sergeant," Wade said. "Not a formal inquiry. Washington sent a commendation for depot security, specifically your professionalism." The colonel studied her. "SEAL commanders don't write about gate guards without reason. I don't need to know who you were, I need to know you can handle sensitive work without creating problems." "Yes, ma'am." 2 days later, Wade's aide appeared at the shack. "The colonel needs you now. Off-schedule visitors." 2 suits waited outside Wade's door. "Agent Carson, DOD. This is Williams." Inside, satellite photos showed a scorched compound in desert light. "Somalia," Williams said. "Attacked by 40 fighters 3 days ago. Repelled, barely. The Ordnance Commander Blake, retrieved from your depot, held the line." "The attackers knew our transport timing," Carson added. "There was a leak." The retrieval involved 7 people, Blake's 5, you, and Major Hoffman. Blake's team were vetted at levels with no names. That left base personnel. Tricia felt the room tilt. "You think it was me?" "We think someone with direct access provided route and timing," Williams said. "You had that access." 6 months of hiding were over, just not how she'd expected. "Then you need the truth about Staff Sergeant Tricia Farrell," she said quietly. "My name was Captain Tricia Barrett, 75th Rangers. Syria, Afghanistan, and places that don't appear in public records. I testified about ROE violations by Colonel Marcus Webb. When I refused to falsify reports, I was shipped to accident-prone details. People high up knew I was right, but prosecuting Webb risked exposing who else knew. The deal was simple: disappear as a staff sergeant under a new name, Webb retires quietly." Wade opened a folder, mostly black ink. Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart. 14 special operations used your assessments. Your testimony triggered a $200 million procurement fraud probe. So who leaked? Carson asked. Hoffman, Tricia said. Obsessed with process, desperate for importance. He cataloged above need to know, demanded my timelines, inventories, movement windows, perfect for sale. By evening, graphs covered Wade's conference table, bank transfers, shell companies, encrypted chats. 3 payments of $15,000 in 2 months, Williams said. All from shells tied to a private security firm active in Somalia. Marcus Security Solutions, Wade muttered. What was he feeding them? Carson asked. Everything, Williams said. Depot schedules, security SOPs, rosters, plus queries on Barrett's background after the SEAL visit. There's more, Carson added. They tasked him to flag when sensitive ordnance moved. The Somalia attack matched our transit window. Where is he? Tricia asked. Gone, Carson said. No show. Car abandoned at Nashville. Passport scanned for Dubai. By the time we get cooperation, he'll be somewhere without extradition. So he walks. Wade's jaw set. Not if we roll his buyers, Tricia said. Marcus is still operating. Replace a burned source with a better one. Meaning? Wade asked. Me. Captain Barrett, reinstated on paper, buried in a dead-end post, bitter and disillusioned. Perfectly placed to sell the same intel, only we control the flow, map the network, pull client lists, and burn the ring. Absolutely not, Wade said. I'm volunteering, Tricia replied. Carson considered. What would you need? Rank restored, a credible legend, technical cover, extraction on a hair trigger. Possible, Carson said. We'll wire you and brief you. But once you step in, there's no net. If this stops timed ambushes, she said, it's worth it. The number called her first. Consultation services, she said. Captain Barrett, Peterson replied smoothly. Mid-50s, expensive suit, a smile practiced on junior officers. $15,000 per package, more for timing. Discretion guaranteed. She kept her face cool while the wire on her ribs drank every word. 2 days later she walked through Marcus's Glass and Steel HQ in Virginia. Reinforced glass, blind corners, countermeasures. Peterson introduced Sandra Walsh, operations director, and a half-dozen former Intel hands. On wall screens, simplified DoD networks and access flows. They wanted a software writer on her authorized machine, an invisible leech that would piggyback her credentials and harvest beyond clearance. $200,000 up front, $50 a month thereafter. I want security guarantees, she said. And I want it in writing. She left with a burner, a timetable, and a silence that meant the test had begun. Back at Campbell, Carson Cybercell built a decoy suite, tools that looked and behaved like theirs, but funneled telemetry into a black hole the task force controlled. For 3 weeks she fed Peterson sanitized packets, real enough to hook clients, false enough to protect lives. Money hit cutouts. Trust deepened, the hook set. Then Walsh escalated. We're ready for installation, Captain. Pre-dawn, a tech slid a USB toward a secure laptop. The room watched her eyes for panic. She breathed, remembered the briefings, and let the decoy swallow the payload. On a covert screen, the task force mirrored every keystroke, mapped command and control, captured operator handles and offshore relays. For the first time, the ring's nervous system pulsed in American hands. Proof came fast. A client pinged for Q4 movement windows on a team deploying from Bragg. The pattern matched Somalia. Walsh wanted timestamps within 48 hours. Tricia asked for a premium and a face-to-face. Peterson obliged. At a booth she slid him a drive wrapped in chain-of-custody theatrics. This one's hot. I want double. He smiled. Our partners will be grateful. In her ear, Overwatch whispered, link confirmed, daisy chain alive, foreign service identifier present. Peterson left with the drive left with the virus. The virus bloomed like ink in water. Virginia and Bucharest lit up on the task force board, servers, mirrors, invoices, tasking. The takedown hit at dawn on a Tuesday. 7 states, 14 sites. At Campbell, Wade stood beside Tricia, watching feeds turn green. The FBI hit Marcus HQ, Marines secured a tech annex, MPs cuffed 2 buyers in a hotel lot. Peterson went down reaching for his phone. Walsh tried to kill Iraq with a fire axe. A breacher took it from her hands. 37 in custody by mid-morning, servers boxed like trophies. Client lists, routing notes, escrow ledgers, allied partners queued warrants overseas. The Ring's backups fell within hours, their polished cover stories cracking like sugar glass. Damage rolled in with the arrests. Over 200 compromised missions in 3 years, Carson briefed, at least 6 directly bloodied by timed ambushes. International partners moved in parallel in 6 countries. This wasn't just money, it was an industry. Wade turned to Tricia. Your rank is restored. Your record is whole. The words landed heavier than any medal. Commander Blake stepped into the doorway the way he had at the fence, quietly, as if he'd always been guarding it. If you want a team that values what you are, he said, we'll clear a seat. Tricia looked at the white card he'd once slid across chain link. She closed her hand around it. I'll stay here, for now. There's a fence that needs watching. Blake nodded, the quiet kind that means understood. After action days blurred, sworn statements, reconciliations, letters to families from missions bled for a balance sheet. Webb, her old colonel, surfaced in a procurement case that finally had teeth. Wade signed a line that erased Farrell as punishment and kept it as an alias, cover used while a captain did work that didn't fit on paper. On a blue morning she walked back to the depot. Same wire, same concrete, same shack. Different weight on the collar. The young specialist knocked before sliding forms through. None of them knew the whole story. They didn't need to. She checked the fence line, counted cameras, logged a perimeter pass. The radio hissed. All stations, routine check. She keyed the mic, ammunition depot, all secure. She set the handset down and watched the road where SUVs had once appeared, the road where only routine rolled today. Peace looked ordinary again, which is the point of winning, the attack that never happens, the convoy that never gets hit, the ordnance that never falls into the wrong hands because a woman on guard said yes to being seen. She thought of the compound in Somalia still standing, of servers boxed, of money that wouldn't buy another ambush, of a major who ran and a network that couldn't. Footsteps approached, Wade, Blake, Carson. No ceremony, just people who understood hard math. Blake nodded toward the wire and bunkers. Still the safest place to hide a thing, he said. Only if the right person is watching, Tricia answered. Wade smiled with her eyes. Thank God you're the one protecting it. Tricia sat, logged the time, and poured coffee from a dented thermos. She watched the gate and the dull beautiful business of nothing happening. Some things, she thought, should never change. Want more unsung hero stories? Type respect in the comments and share this with someone in uniform.